in every 6 Americans is affected by a communication disorder, such as hearing loss. And in the case of hearing loss, of the nearly 30 million Americans who suffer from it, over half are actually under the age of 65. Right here in St. Louis, the Center for Hearing and Speech has been helping individuals overcome communication disorders since 1920. Today, we're going to learn more about their work in the St. Louis area and discuss some of the trend stories around communication disorders. Please stay with us next, right here on City Corner. Hi, I'm Sarah Thompson and welcome to City Corner. Today we're going to discuss communication disorders, and we're specifically looking at the work of the nonprofit organization, the Center for Hearing and Speech, right here in St. Louis. I'm joined by the Executive Director, Rita Tintera. Thank you for coming on today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
So we've got a lot to cover today. I thought what we could talk about first is when we talk about communication disorders, it's such a sort of broad term. What specifically does that refer to?
We're talking about people who hearing loss and speech language disorders are what we deal with on communication disorders, and that pretty well covers the gamut of it. It also covers the deaf population, but the Center for Hearing and Speech primarily works with people with a hearing loss that is not to that degree.
And what we're going to get into is, I think sometimes most people assume when you talk about hearing loss that this is something that affects people later on in life, when in fact that's not that's actually true. When we look at the sort of mission of the organization, and it is a nonprofit, and the services, what specifically what type of services does the center provide?
We have 3 programs that we really put out for the community, and what we do, and I want to emphasize this, is our services are available to everyone, but we really target communities and populations that are low income, because we want to get to the people that really need the help and can't afford to pay for those services. So we do audiology as a program, speech language pathology, and then our early identification school screening program is another one. But what we're doing is we're identifying and treating hearing loss, providing amplification hearing aids. We're enrolling individuals in speech language therapy, and then the school screening program, we're doing mass early identification screenings.
Okay. I wanted to start with these sort of topical stories that are out right now, getting a lot of publicity, a lot of media in terms of hearing loss, and one has to do with teen hearing loss. And there's studies that are showing a significant increase, really in some cases as high as 30%. And I know that one study was done in Boston where they said about 1 in 5 adolescents has evidence of some kind of hearing loss, and they're attributing this to iPods, MP3 usage. So what is some of the research that you're hearing about, and what are your thoughts on this in terms of increased hearing loss in teens?
Now, what I want to say is I'm Executive Director for the Center for Hearing and Speech, not an audiologist, but I will put forth the views of our audiologists that work at the center, who are all PhD degreed audiologists. There's a very high prevalence of the risk for severe hearing loss in teenagers, and there's a lot of research studies, and what they're showing, the studies, is that first off, teenagers listen to music louder than people in their 20s, louder than people in their 30s. And because we all have the personal listening devices, and of course the younger you are, the sooner you get your first iPod or personal listening device.
Right.
And you're putting those little earbuds into your ear and you're turning the volume up, and you're at a higher risk of hearing loss. And I will say that 25% of teens, 13 to 18, are at a high risk for severe hearing loss. Doesn't mean they have it, but they're putting themselves at a high risk for that loss. But the studies do show that hearing loss has been increased. There was a research study done that looked like from the late 80s into the mid 90s, and then in the early like 2000 to 2008 they were doing the comparison studies. So there was a 31% increase in hearing loss in teenagers. The significant part of it is when you're looking at the more severe hearing loss, like a loss of 25 decibels or greater, that increase, there was a 77% increase in the incident of that more severe hearing loss.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's, I mean, it's like with technology, it's like so many things are the pros and the cons, and I think, you know, unfortunately the downside of from headphones now to the actual buds, as you were mentioning, that we place in our ears, it's having its effect. What are some of the tips to prevent damage, prevent further damage in this case amongst teens?
Well, let's just talk about the personal listening devices, because that's really where the spotlight is on right now. They are not bad devices if they're used properly. It's like almost everything. And if you've got a teenager or even a younger child with a personal listening device, if you can hear the music, say from the distance between the two of us, then you know that's too loud and that child needs to get that volume down. Now there is a product that you can buy, and you can buy it from the center, but you can buy it many places, and they're called kids buds. And what they do is you can take these earplugs and you can put them on your child's iPod, and what they do is they do not allow the volume to go above 85 decibels. No matter what you do with the device, it's in the little earbud that goes in your ear that it stops that loudness from getting to your child's ear. So if you've got young children, this is a great alternative. What we're trying to do is to really provide a lot of very targeted education, because research does show that when teenagers are really informed about the benefit of protecting their hearing, they actually do pay attention.
When we talk about hearing loss in general, we've just spoken really about teens and something that's kind of occurred in the past decades because of sort of the personal hearing devices and loud music. But just in general, as a parent, and you have a child, and as that child develops, what should you look for if you suspect your child has a hearing loss, or what signs should you look for?
Well, let's talk about under a year old first, okay? And we all know, and you know yourself, that when babies are born, they receive a hearing screening at the hospital before they're sent home. That's the first step to catching a lot of problems. But beyond that, children can develop inner ear problems. They can get fluid behind the eardrum. It happens very frequently, and a lot of times parents don't recognize it. So talking about babies under the age of 1, you just want to see if they have some eye movement when you come into the room. Do they respond to your voice? Do they smile? You know, do they coo a little bit when they hear noises or when they see mom and dad? As you get older, like say 18 months to 2 years, what you're looking for is your child verbalizing? Are they doing 1-2 words? Are they responding if you ask your child to show me your nose? Can they point to their nose? Do they seem to startle if there's a loud noise behind them? It's just really common sense observation of your children. When you get a little bit older into preschool, you really want to watch, are they turning things up? Are they turning TV up? Do they localize? When you walk in the room, do they take a look over to see who came in the room? Are they having trouble with their speech? Are they pronouncing their letters correctly? Do they know how to put words together into sentences? All of those things are signs that you might want to have your child's hearing tested.
And you actually work with schools. Tell me a bit more about the school's screening program.
We do. Last year we screened 10,500 plus children last year alone. What we're doing is we're giving them a vision test to make sure that they can see. We're doing a hearing screening, and we're doing a test of middle ear function called tympanometry. That helps us find those mild undetected hearing ear infections where there's fluid behind the eardrum. And then we can notify families, we notify school administrators, and they get intervention started right away. And what we find through that school screening program, almost everything we do detect is treatable.
Okay.
So.
Well, I know there was on your website too, there was a Today Show story that was done on hearing loss, and it was really on excessive noise being the #1 cause of hearing loss,
Yes.
not actually aging. And the gentleman that they featured was in his 30s or late 30s. And I want to make it a point that you also work just as much with young people as you do adults.
Oh, we
So how do
absolutely
adults
do.
sort of hear about the center to come in? I mean, how does that community outreach managed?
And I will reinforce that we serve people of all ages in audiology. I mean, we put hearing aids on 3-month-old babies. We put them on people who are 105. We have open access. Referrals aren't necessary. People can pick up the telephone. They can give us a call. Certainly, a lot of doctors will refer to us. We also have schools who refer to us, and we do a lot of community outreach into the more impoverished neighborhoods to make sure that people who need our services know that we're here and we're available to help them out.
And I also want to talk about, we've been mentioning hearing loss, but also stuttering is sort of under that category of communication disorders.
Absolutely.
So tell me about briefly your stuttering program.
Okay. Our stuttering program is part of our speech language department. We do a lot of work with kids primarily, but we do work with some adults as well. And we do a great job with individuals who stutter. They can be adult stutterers and they can be children who stutter. The earlier we can get a child in who is showing disfluencies, signs of maybe a permanent stuttering disorder, the earlier we get them in, the better chance we have of alleviating that disorder with them altogether. If we get children who are older, teenagers or even adults, they've gone through treatment after treatment that hasn't been successful. So what we work with them on is controlling their disfluency. And when you've got a really, really strong desire to correct your own challenge that you have, and you got a good speech pathologist working with you, and a lot can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that the center has been around. You're celebrating your 90th anniversary, so it's been around since 1920. So we're going to get more into the history of the Center for Hearing and Speech when we return. So please stay with us as we learn more about communication disorders and specifically the work of the Center for Hearing and Speech right here in St. Louis. Stay with us on City Corner.
So I asked my uncle, what's a special interest? He says they run Washington. He said they're groups of special interest in getting bills through Congress or the State House. So I said, I'm a Boy Scout, and our supporters help make a difference by educating elected officials on issues. Does that make me a special interest too? I guess my uncle thinks the Boy Scouts are helping to run Washington. Am I missing something?
Learn more about American democracy by logging on to representativedemocracy.org.
So, do you have any questions?
What is your soup of the day?
We have a mulligatawny soup.
Oh, do you have any specials?
We have a steak special today.
Oh, how's that cooked?
That's pan-seared and then...
Does it come with a side dish?
Is it grilled? Can I have it steamed?
So, what do you recommend?
What kind of pie do you have?
You an actor. Aren't you from Ohio?
Any questions?
Ask questions. For the 10 questions everyone should know, go to ahrq.gov.
A lot of people say government is too messy. Half the people say something's a good idea, and the other half say, well, it's a bad idea. All we hear about is the disagreement, the bickering, the compromises, which can leave a bad taste in our mouths. No wonder so many people are cynical, thinking that nothing good can get done. Actually, messy can be good, like my ice cream sundae. Let's think of our democracy that way. You've got all these different choices, lots of flavors blending together. Then, the only thing you have to worry about is that it gets a little sticky. Am I missing something?
Learn about what you can do to make American democracy stronger by logging on to www.representativedemocracy.org.
I'm Sarah Thompson, and welcome back to City Corner. Today I'm joined by Rita Tintera. She's the Executive Director for the Center for Hearing and Speech. And today we're talking about the center's work here in St. Louis, as well as communication disorders, and how the center helps individuals overcome communication disorders. So before we took off for break, we were segued into this whole anniversary, 90th anniversary, that the center has been around since 1920. Tell me about sort of the history of the center. It's done some amazing work here in the area.
The center was formed in 1920 by a really small group of very hard of hearing young adults. And if you go back, 90 years ago, anything trying to get social engagements and trying to find employment when you've got a severe hearing loss, it was a very difficult thing to do. So they bonded together. They really wanted to just have social activities, but then they started looking at the community education component of it. The center started the first formal lip reading instruction classes at one of the St. Louis City high schools at night. Then as we grew, they decided that we needed to do really some formal clinic work. So we added audiology in for we're doing hearing testing, providing the very old antiquated hearing aids, some of the horns that you see.
Really? Yeah.
And then what they did were they were helping people find employment. Then in the 50s, we added our speech language program. And then in 1969, we added our school screening program. So over the course of the years, we have really made a huge impact in the lives of thousands of individuals in our metro area. Not too many people know we are around, and so we're happy every time we get an opportunity to talk about what benefit we bring to people who live here.
Sure, because I think even one of the statistics that I had you serve each year, 14,000 people annually.
Yes.
So you're reaching out to a lot of people. Tell me about the project that you did with the Missouri History Museum.
Well, I started to look, and I'm not a hoarder, but I hate to throw things away, and I've been with the center since 1970, so a lot of the history is very intimate to me, at least back that far. So we thought this is too valuable. The information is very valuable. We contacted the History Museum and we worked with them. We gave them over all of our archives up to about the last 20 years. And they are categorizing it, putting it all together, and hopefully very soon it'll be accessible to anyone through their website.
That's really
And
good.
then we know that things are preserved for us.
Right. No, that's amazing. I think it's important to archive that, especially as you
Yes.
mentioned, because especially with hearing aids, and I mean, there's been such a development of them, and the technology now that it's pretty state of the art in terms of what exists out there on the market.
Yes, compared to what there was before. And we're proud of the fact that our original founders had relationships, personal relationships with Helen Keller. We have personal notes written from Helen Keller and photographs sent to some of our original founders.
Really?
Things from Thomas Edison, things that really make an impact. May has become National Better Hearing and Speech Month, but that started with National Hearing Awareness Week right here in St. Louis with our organization. So we're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I did not know that. That is very interesting. Now, you mentioned you've been with the organization since 1970. You have a very long history with the center. I mean, tell me about how you got started.
It's one of those things I'm going to college on the weekends and in the evening and working full-time, and someone said, I think you would like to meet these people that work at this place, and I never even knew what an audiometer was, which is what you use to test hearing. So I started there working, figuring I'd be there 2 years and I would leave. But once you see what happens at the center on a daily basis, there are little miracles. You teach children how to speak, you put hearing aids on people, and you see their lives reopen. And fortunate for me, as I progressed, opportunities became available, and I just ended up where I am. So, and I think that I am fortunate to be there, and it's a reward every day to go home and know what we've done. So,
That's wonderful to hear. Now, I know fundraising is public, awareness, community outreach, and of course fundraising is important to the center to continue your mission. So we're going to talk about one that's actually coming up right in March, the Musical Mayhem, if you want to tell us about that.
Okay, Musical Mayhem is our one and only fundraiser, annual fundraiser. We have a great time. It's not a black tie thing. You go out to Harris Casino. Harris sponsors it for us. We don't gamble. We have great food stations and a lot of activity, and this year we're having entertainment. We're having dueling pianos, which is always a great thing. Live auctions, silent auctions, and we rely on that to help us put hearing aids on people, put kids in therapy, do our screenings. It's a great event. You know, we'd love people to attend it. They can contact us if they like about tickets. It's a great event. And yeah, I do want to mention too that we're able to do so many things in our community. Last year we put over 500 hearing aids on people who paid very little for those hearing aids or paid nothing at all. And one of the reasons we're able to do that is community support through Musical Mayhem, through individual contributions, but we are also funded by the United Way of Greater St. Louis, and we have been since 1947. So certainly they're one of the legs that prop us up and allow us to do what we do.
Absolutely. I mean, how much when you, in terms of your United Way organization, connected with United Way, are there grants involved? I mean, how else do you, because you do so much work for the community. I don't think people realize how expensive hearing aids, for example, that they get up into $2,500 into that range easily, with 3,000 more. So when you have people coming and they're getting discounted hearing aids and getting financial assistance, how else are you able to do that as an organization?
Well, and United Way is one funding source. Musical Mayhem is another. We do a lot of grant writing. We've been fortunate in getting private and corporate foundations, a lot of individual donors, and we're very proud to say that we have a program at the Center for Hearing and Speech that supports our mission and does not suck any support revenue to run it. It actually produces a profit for us. And what we're doing, it's related to hearing loss. We go into businesses where employees are working in high noise level environments, and OSHA mandates that they are to receive a hearing evaluation every year to see if there's any loss of hearing ability. So we do that annual testing for a lot of companies, and then the money we make from that helps us put hearing aids on adults and children, and do our speech therapy and do our school screenings.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, no, that's great. And I know you have a really strong volunteer program. So do you want to tell me about that? Because I know
I would encourage and invite and plead anyone who is interested in doing some volunteer hours to visit our website. We've got, or give us a phone call, but the website has a volunteer page on it. We take college students, high school students, senior citizens. This morning I met an incredible professional woman who is in between jobs right now and wants to remain active. She says, I'll give you 20 hours a week and I'll do anything office work that you need to do. We have office work available, some IT work available, anything, all the way down to putting books together for the children in therapy, cleaning the toys because we have to keep them clean on a daily basis. So lots of volunteer opportunities with a great organization.
That's wonderful. I mean, when you think about how many years you've been with the organization, I mean, what have you sort of seen? I mean, in terms of pros and cons, and in terms of not just communication disorders and the solutions for them, but just what are some of the trends that you're seeing? How do you reflect on the past 30 years?
Well, it's interesting. What the center does is strive to meet the unmet need in our community. And if we went way back to the 60s, before I started, and it was still operating when I was there, we had a preschool for children who were hard of hearing. They weren't served by the schools for the deaf because their hearing wasn't quite to that degree. Well, we used to work with them on a daily basis every morning. We don't do that anymore because the school systems have been able to pick up and extend so many services to children who have challenges, communication disorders. A lot of services are available to children with speech language disorders through the school systems. Sadly, to say not as many as they need to have, but they're better than they were before. And then what we also see too is children, once you get them amplified, put hearing aids on them, some of them get a surgical procedure called a bone-anchored hearing aid, some of them go all the way to a cochlear implant if they have profound loss. children are being mainstreamed in living normal lives so much more than they were 40 years ago. And we still see a stigma associated with wearing hearing loss. It's not as bad as it used to be, but we do keep trying to erase that stigma. People wear eyeglasses all the time and don't think anything about it, but when you put a hearing aid on or you tell someone they need a hearing aid, they think that people are going to think that they're getting older, they're not as sharp as they used to be, when in fact it's the exact opposite. If you have a hearing loss and you're not wearing amplification, someone asks you questions, you're answering inappropriately, you're not hearing them. So really, you are hurting yourself by not addressing the issue. And technology is so much different. You know, you had hearing aids that were huge, and now they're very teeny tiny, you can't even see them hid behind the ear.
Right, yeah, I was pretty surprised in some of the research that I was doing to prepare for this that I saw some of the hearing aids, you put them in and they stay in for up to 3 months in your ear. It was one on the Today Show. I don't know which one it was, but there's so many. That's probably the Today Show. They probably have the, you know, the bells and whistles. But I was pretty surprised just the variety that are out there.
The vast majority of degreed audiologists are not going to support that particular type of technology, but technology is good, it's all digital. When you come in to get a hearing aid, we're not pulling one off the shelf and it's already programmed. We actually program each hearing aid specifically to the person that is going to be wearing it. It's the same as we were talking about the iPods, the difference between that technology and this. Same thing with hearing aids, they're so much better than they used to be. Well, you can stream them to your Bluetooth. You can do all kinds of things.
Wow, I didn't know that. But yeah, it's just really, it's amazing that the work that you're doing in the community and how you're tapped into with the technology that's evolving in the field, in the audiology field. But thank you for coming on. This has been extremely informative, and we want to be sure that we remind people that they can go attend Musical Mayhem, again, in support for the Center for Hearing and Speech. It's one of their big fundraisers held every year, and it will be at Harrah's, and we have a full screen graphic with all the information for that. So again, that is Save the Date, March 2nd, that's coming up. And again, great fundraiser for the Center for Hearing and Speech. So Rita, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it so much. Every time I get a chance to talk about the center, I will take it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you at home for watching City Corner, and please keep it locked right here on STL TV.